There's just a lot of weirdness going on. That's the Occupy Atlanta protest. This Occupy Wall Street thing is spreading. We'll show you a little bit more about this tomorrow, but they had this strange zombie-like call and repeat from their leaders. It's sort of practicing being very obedient, very, very weird. Speaking of weirdness, a man who has immersed himself, marinated himself in the grotesquerie of Occupy Wall Street joins us now from our New York studios. I'm talking about Charles Cooke with National Review. Charles, thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
Now, you went down to the New York site of Occupy Wall Street with a camera, and you talked to some of these folks, and I think some of the video footage you get is just absolutely classic. Can you take us through 3 clips of your experiences of what's really going on with this protest?
Well, the first thing to say is that I'm not entirely enlightened, having been down there. You know, we're both big free speech guys. Protests are part of America. They're part of free culture. But this one is inchoate, and it's a little bit silly, if I'm honest. There's a lot of people down there who really don't know why they're there. Yeah, I mean, in a way, I believe in Occupy Wall Street if that means stopping Wall Street from getting huge bailouts from Congress. I mean, I could support that, stopping the Fed from, you know, goosing things and printing money. I would sort of support that. That's sort of the Ron Paul in me. But you went down there and things were really weird. Here's one clip you took of a fella wearing an East German Stasi secret police outfit. Let's watch the clip and then you can tell me a little bit about what he tried to say. Right. Why are you wearing an East German military uniform?
Because it's, if the Republicans want to talk about class war, they should know what it means. It's a Congress uniform. It's a reminder what class war means something.
Are you endorsing this uniform?
No, just because it's the most beautiful uniform in the world for a fact.
That's a beautiful uniform.
Yeah, it is. It was the most beautiful uniform in the Warsaw Pact.
Why?
We add a little note of theatrical Marxism, that's all.
Did he just call that theatrical Marxism? Is that what I heard, Charles?
Right, that's what he said. And I think, having been down there, this is a key element, which is that a lot of it is performance art. I mean, I think that sometimes trying to look for too deep an intellectual background to these people is a mistake. I've met a lot of people like him. He was probably the most extreme. But he almost was confusing it with a chance to play Halloween. Yeah, you know, I watched your extended interview with him, and he said he loves to wear that on Halloween. He would never wear a Nazi uniform, but he might wear other uniforms if he could afford them. Like, for him, this was just a chance to have a bit of a dress-up party with the media in attendance, right? Right, and there's a lot of people down there with guitars, there are drum circles and so on. But where it was slightly worrying, I mean, it's very easy to write them off as being theatrical, and that is, as I say, a large part of this. It's almost a Woodstock or a Grateful Dead concert feel down there. But at the end of the video, he says quite scarily, you know, maybe there'll be a revolution, maybe there'll be a class warfare, there'll be class warfare and it won't be pretty. And there's a look he gets in his eye and you think, well, I'm not going to leave that to chance. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, you know, there's a bizarreness. I mean, bizarre and slightly terrifying. They seem, in some ways, to be harmless. They seem to have a bit of a sense of humor, but it's a very dark one. Here's another interview you did with a fella just holding up a cardboard sign. I couldn't decide if this guy was making fun of the whole thing or getting caught up in it. Let's look at this brief clip of a fellow with a cardboard sign.
I thought I would go with the message that I think everyone can agree with.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of different opinions here. So
it's not very coherent, is it?
What?
It's not very coherent here.
No, not really.
No.
But I guess the general opinion is we hate stuff. Yeah.
Now, he could be mocking them, we hate stuff, like you and I might, or he might be sort of a radical Marxist who doesn't believe in property, doesn't believe in materialism. I mean, Billy Bragg talked about the sin called property. I couldn't quite tell. Do you think this fellow was making fun of them or really boiling down their argument?
No, I think he was making fun of them, but either way, he's hit the nail on the head, actually, which is that the number of people who told me that they were sort of generally angry about something, they'd gone down there and then they'd found a cause. And I mean, not to glorify it to this degree, but I mean, nobody did that with the Civil Rights Act. It wasn't as if people said, oh, I'll go down and see what the confusion is about, oh, you know, racial equality. And there's an inversion here between a lot of real protest that comes from a genuine overwhelming need and people coalesce, and what is essentially a large sort of sit-in.
Yeah, it's a street party with lots of drugs and sex and the odd public defecation. We're not going to run footage of that, but we have one last clip that you took before we got to go to a break. It's a fellow who was sort of caught amongst the muck. You interviewed a shopkeeper. Let's take a quick look at what he said.
So you must be hoping they go away soon.
Hopefully they give me the answer for
what they want.
What they want.
Yeah.
And then who they asking, and then where do they need to go.
Right.
Yeah. And then they say I want you that I back from my business.
Yeah.
So I get to survive.
So there's a Vietnamese immigrant who can't get to his workplace. He's been shut down for 2 weeks, and he's just really wishing these people would go away. But as he sort of said, he didn't really understand what they wanted.
No, and I think there's a cultural thing there in that, I mean, what was very poignant is that towards the end of the video it got too loud and you can't hear it, but he told me towards the end of the video that he'd worked his way up from the bottom in Vietnam. He'd finally got enough money together to come to the United States, and now again he was working his way from the bottom. I mean, he's a street vendor, he's got a child, and he couldn't understand why they were all sitting around blocking his doing that. And I thought that was pretty poignant, because he said, I don't have a problem with them protesting, I just want to know what they're doing, and they don't seem to have a real reason.
Not just that, but coming from Vietnam, he probably dealt with real tyranny, where protests actually was dangerous and meant something, not just a chance to do a little street theater. Listen, Charles Cooke, I'm so glad you joined us today. Keep going down there and getting those crazy video images and putting them up on YouTube. And that's just the National Review online site on YouTube. We can view all those, right?
That's right, absolutely.
Well, thanks, my friend, for joining us from New York. Go down there and see what else you can find. We'll talk to you soon again.